Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to share a conversation today with Jasmine Nnenna. Did I say her last name properly? Yeah,
Nnenna.
Nnenna.
Hmm.
She is a philosopher and the founder of Erah Society, which is something that I stumbled upon because I was so drawn to the aesthetic, first of all. And I absolutely loved everything that was within its container, which was spirituality and mainly for me, a different way of looking at business and entrepreneurship
Hmm.
and seeking something and also feeling like I found a part of me. So
Hmm.
I'm just going to name for my audience. I feel so nervous to speak with you for some reason.
Aw.
I feel like I'm being reunited with like a very important teacher and just a good friend.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
I feel like we're on like this first date after a long time.
Even though we have talked like a million times before,
I know. Thank you for
then that
being
must
here,
mean
Jazz.
that, thank you. Thank you for having me. That must mean that you are like a refreshed part of you.
I am. I certainly do not feel the same as I was when we explored work together. And
Mm.
I feel like you really met me at a very, I want to say, like caterpillar to cocoon time of my life. So here I am. Here we are. Thank
Hmm.
you, God, for bringing us together.
Yes.
I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm so happy to be here with you and get to witness this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a gift and a joy. I feel like you need to catch me up, even though I'm on your podcast. I'm like, what's
I
going
know.
on?
Well, I mean, in short, since we've started, I've begun a journey with somatic clinical therapy. So I've been in a deep dive there. Somatics for me is just, it's really this expression of life lived through the body and how our experience of life can be calcified in the body and expressed in
Mm.
what we experience and how it's reflected back, and just how is our
Oh,
reciprocity with life being met at any given moment, and where is it coming from, and how is our view of the world shaping our perspective. And so there's a
that's
lot.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it's so beautiful, and it's very slow, which I love to honor. Like, I think that was something we explored in our work, was really honoring the true cadence of our heart instead of
Yes.
feeling like we needed to be, with the overculture and the pace of what everyone else was doing. So that was really beautiful to be held in a space like that with you.
Hmm. Thank you.
And yeah, I, so when I was sitting in space before connecting with you, I was sitting with an oracle deck and I was like, what space do you want Jazz and I to explore from for our highest
Hmm.
interest and for our community? And the card I drew, it's called the Starseed Oracle by Rebecca Campbell. And it's very like touches on the cosmos and our star seeds.
Hmm.
Really beautiful. And the card I pulled was called Hiriath,
Hmm.
Hireath. So I don't know if I'm saying that properly, but it stands for a Welsh word that refers to homesickness and longing for home
Wow.
and being connected with our home within the universe. So I thought we could open
Hmm.
up from there. I
That's
found it kind of,
beautiful.
yeah, it's deep, right? Like I noticed through your page, you just moved homes, right?
Yeah.
That's a big transition.
Yes.
And I thought we could start there with exploring this notion of what is home.
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful card. I'm not familiar with the deck, but I'm grateful that it has given us an anchor point and a beginning part
Yeah.
to this conversation. Home. It's interesting. Yes, I have moved back to the States after being in Bali for 4 years, and that was my home for so long, and everything about it. Like, we are all as a family still missing so many people and so many parts of that.
Hmm.
But we knew within during our third year that we wouldn't be there forever. There was just a feeling that you have to go back to your homeland. You know, there are things that I need you there for. There are things that this space in Bali is preparing you for, and all of all of that is so beautiful, and I'm so grateful that we got to experience that as a family, and the kids got to experience it, and I got to experience it as an individual. And every single day now I'm just realizing why we are back here,
Mm.
what is happening here, what we were prepared for, what things have changed and evolved in our homeland country of the States, and what things haven't. And everything is so beautifully timed, even if we fight divine timing and or we don't understand it or we
Mhm.
rage against it. There are just some things that we will never know why it works the way that it does.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing a lot of resurgence around, maybe it's not a resurgence, but it just feels a lot more alert and a lot more palpable around this seeking and yearning to find a home. Not only a home within the physical spaces that we inhabit, but a home within ourselves. Everyone is seeking meaning now. There's so many things happening in the world with our fellow humans that we cannot make sense of, even though we're trying really hard to understand why they're all happening. And
Yeah.
it's simultaneously pushing upon this collective button of where do we belong? Who are we? Why do we hurt each other? Why do we hurt? Why do we suffer? Will
Mhm.
we ever find peace? Will we ever find safety? Will we ever find love, unconditional love? And I think everyone is trying to find the answer to that in the best way that they know how. Some methods are more destructive than others, but at the core, we're really all looking for a home, a sense of belonging, and I think even a sense of gathering, a sense of communing together.
Yeah. I've really been exploring the meaning, like the etymology of the word community. And it's just really interesting to notice how my definition of that have shifted. Like I used to think I wanted to create community, and yeah, that's still true. And there's this deeper sense of depth of like, it feels more like this mutual reciprocity and care for both of our
Mhm.
welfare, that we're both here because we are both adding value. And when I say both, I mean me and the people within a community. And so everything you're saying about home and what you're noticing and tracking and what people are seeking, I have noticed as well. And I feel like once you've attuned to that, you can't really unsee it. It
No.
almost feels like not as fulfilling when we don't go to that deep place, right?
And
And
when we
I'm
don't go together.
and when we don't go together, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful African proverb that's like, if you want to go
Mm.
fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm
I love that.
curious for you if Alex was feeling that sense of like it's time to move as well. Alex being your partner.
Was Alex feeling that way too? I think so. I think he was a bit more hesitant than me. He likes when we have gotten to a place of stability, he likes the stability.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more, not too much of a risk taker, but a little bit more than him.
Yeah.
And so when it's time to move, especially when it's divine guidance and the voice is so clear and the direction is so clear, it's like we have to go. We don't
Yeah.
have a choice. Yeah, I mean, you have a choice. You don't have to go, but when you have heard truth, where else are you going to go? You
But
know?
yeah, and I love that you said that because it's a beautiful bridge to what was coming up for me intuitively, which is like this notion of being divinely human. When
Mm,
you hear that call, and I know this is something we explored together and something that I realized in our time together was like, oh, actually, like to feel our divinity is to allow our whole human experience. And when you're speaking to, when you hear that call, when you feel that truth, I'd love to hear how that shows up for you. Is it this
mm.
visceral feeling? Is it literally this voice that speaks and you're like, Alex, like I have this, I got to share something with you? Because That's kind of what it is for me. I'd love to know what it is for you.
Oh, that's so cool. That's such a great question. I was standing in the shower yesterday and the water was just, beating down my back. And I started doing this rocking motion, just kind of a self-soothing in the shower. And all of a sudden these visions started like flurrying up.
Mm.
And I could just see myself in the shower. Like the setting was still the same, but it has somehow clouds had arranged themselves at my feet. And these little clouds were all of my desires, my yearnings, my wants, but they were below me in a way.
Interesting.
And the feeling that just kept coming was just a feeling of being risen, just being
Wow.
above the clouds, above all of those things. And when I got out of the shower, I told Alex, I said, I have one of the greatest gifts that could ever be given to us. I have peace. There's just a sense of peace that no matter what the 3D is reflecting back to me, yes, I can choose to engage with it like I would a video game, but to be able to go to a place of such deep inner peace, what more could I want? What
Yeah.
more could I ask for? What more could I have? And I think for me, it just comes in a sense of a feeling that just washes over me. And then later on, the words or the visions come to affirm what that feeling is.
Mm.
So when it's time to move, it is a full body, head to toe. Sometimes it's a tingle, sometimes it's not, but it's just a wave that crashes against my body, my inner thoughts, just everything that I am. It's just a wave that comes of just peace. Like it's just pure peace is the only way I can really describe it. There's no conflict there. Even though there might be fear and all these other things, there is a sense of you have been risen above this.
Wow. I just want to take a deep sigh into that. I really received that palpable piece as you were describing that. Thank you for painting such a beautiful, like this feeling of what that experience is for you.
Hmm.
It's, I mean, I feel like there's no words
Yeah,
right
it
now.
is. It is wordless. And while the visions are there to affirm that, it's just a sense of being so held. And while that is happening, simultaneously there is actually someone asked me this question today and just said, excuse me, I'm having so much, I don't feel like worthy that God should pay attention to me or that I should feel that sense of peace.
Mm.
How do I chase God or how do I demand that God sees me? And I was there. I had that same kind of yearning at some point in my life.
Mhm.
But something that I heard Ram Dass say was that we have to be eager to give over our suffering. And I think that's the reward. Peace is the reward. We have to be so eager to drop it all to, I'm a victim and I was hurt and I was shamed and I was blamed and all these things. We have to be so eager
Yeah.
to give that up.
It's interesting you're sharing this because in my prayer this morning, we're moving through some house stuff right now. And I'm kind of just tired of worrying about the outcome. But
Mm.
something I learned from Mary Magdalene Revealed, I don't know if you've read that book yet,
No,
but
I haven't.
there's a part where she's moving through this like precipice of deep unknown and she just can't carry it anymore. And she comes to this place of surrender and she's like, I'm giving you all that I can't anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not only that, it was like preceding that she received this peaceful feeling as if it was like this permission slip, like, give it to me, child, like, give it up to me, what you cannot carry, and I will, I don't know the exact words, but it was this sense of like taking the pressure off,
Yeah.
noticing the stories we tell around that which feels like life-changing moments or even just life-changing,
Mm.
and noticing where we can create space for something that our mind can't possibly perceive in that moment, you know.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because I think that question is so connected to when we get into a place of, I'm doing all the right things, I'm having the faith, I'm holding on, why isn't it working? And for me, why it hasn't worked in quote unquote my favor in the past is because I wanted to be vindicated, validated that my vision, my way, my design, my thought was going to be the way that it worked out. And although we are creators and we can manifest and create so many incredible things, we don't have full vision. We cannot see everything at all times in all places at once. I think that we can experience those moments of just, falling into all there is and then you're completely blissed out, but that's not how we live in our human capacity. We can't focus on all those things.
mm,
And so we have to be able to celebrate and immerse ourselves in those visions that we're designing for ourselves and then eagerly give it back.
yeah,
Eagerly give it back to the same place that fueled that imagination and those colors and that vibrancy and that excitement for even conjuring up that vision in the first place. I hope that doesn't sound too out there.
what I hear when you say that is this undertone and an overarching invitation of, you're not alone in this. There's a
Mm-hmm.
co-creative aspect that is happening, this
Yes.
dance between you and life, this fluidity, that when you're actually outrageously open to that, you need not make it what you think it need be, and be open to possibility of what it wants to
Exactly.
be,
Yeah.
being these channels and portals of what's moving through all the time. Like recently, I learned that one of my teachers in a business class, she calls it the juice of life, and how
Mm.
we stay connected to that juice. And it's another word for life force. So I don't think that sounds out there at all, because that's something I love to be in practice with too. And the very human part of me, which I'd love to ask you, is how do you move past that egoic part that is so loud and strong sometimes that it can be
Mm-hmm.
a little bit destructive, because it
Mm-hmm.
it creates gaps between where we are and where we want to go, even though those gaps can be in service to pausing and recalibrating, reassessing. But really,
Mm.
like, how do you move past that ego part?
In my past, I used to really fight it. I used to say, okay, I'm going to go meditate, or I'm going to go take this walk, or I'm going to go do this active thing. And more recently, in my more recent years, I like to think of myself more as a Buddhist Christian. And
Mm,
I've been immersing myself in Dzogchen. And it's just this practice to think all the thoughts you want.
mm.
There's
That's a lot.
no trying to leave it or trying to scold it or trying to fix it or trying to heal it or trying action, 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 taking
Mm,
action all the time. And it has just opened up such profundity for me in the sense that I love a good action move. I
yeah,
mean,
you
don't get
do.
me wrong. I'm ambitious and I love that. But I also love to just watch it all go by.
Mm,
And so that inner critic, I just don't try to fight it anymore. And what we don't fight, it just leaves. because we acknowledge that that fear is there, the fear stays. And I guess it is kind of in the sense, what you focus on grows. But it's more for me this idea that I give fear life. Life would be nothing. Fear would be nothing without my life. So by me paying
Wow.
attention to that fear, I am enlivening it. I'm animating it. It's dead without me. So I can just let it be there. And when I want to, I will decide when I want to give breath to whatever I want to give breath to.
Wow. That is such, I don't know. That for me feels like I just experienced a little shift there. That's such a powerful reframe.
Hmm.
I give fear life. I
Mm-hmm.
give breath to that which I want to give breath to. Fear cannot exist without me.
Yes. Yes. It's the same power that God has given us to be creators. If we have an inkling of, mythology, Christian mythology, I like to call it, that God breathed life into these lifeless beings, then that same life, with all of its inherent qualities, maybe not quantities, is within us as well, is within our breath. So
Mm,
we then can do the same thing that Creator did for us, through us, with anything on this reality that we can think of. We give it life. It didn't just emanate from nowhere.
right. That makes me, it reminds me of a time we explored work together, and it was, what would God do and what would the God within me
Yes.
do? How might the God within me see this? And,
Yeah.
for some, I know that God can be a far reaching word. And I would say,
Hmm.
like, you could use the word love because that's how
Yeah,
I
I love
feel
that.
God in my life. But what would love do? How would love change shapes if you were to move it from that space versus the charge of fear?
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
just changes the whole perspective completely for me anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can use any word. You can use goodness. You can use softness,
Yeah.
sweetness. You can use a color, yellow. You can use a feeling. You can use a touch. You can use a texture. It really doesn't matter what we call it. It's unnameable. The God that I'm referring to, the God that you're
Mm,
referring to, the God that every human refers to is unnameable. But because we speak in sounds and in letters and in,
right.
numbers, we, in order to communicate with one another and reference the feeling that we are trying to touch upon, we need these names, but it's unnameable. It's the feeling that washes over you that can't be spoken.
It's so true. And, like I was raised Catholic, and it was a very interesting experience going to an all girls school, and like religion was a big part of that. Honestly, a lot of it didn't resonate with me, and there were some parts that did. And so I'm curious for you, when you intersect with someone that really has a hard time digesting that aspect of this unnameable, I want to say life force, energy, love, whatever word it is for anyone, how might you help them to connect with something that is so unfamiliar for them, and yet there is this even like tiny but mighty call within, that there is something more to this human embodiment, and
Mm,
yet it is through this honoring of this human embodiment through which we can connect with that.
yeah. I love that you said that it's through this human embodiment that we can connect to this outer thing that we envision it. I did not grow up with religion. That was not my background. I had a lot more spaciousness, I think, around the normal person when it comes to religion and faith and spirituality. And I think that's why I'm so deeply intrigued by the stranglehold that our man-made structures have created on the
Yes.
rest of humanity. It just seems completely out of left field for me, just foreign. And
Mm,
so I really want to understand, and that's why I really dig deep to study and contemplate and meditate. And so for anyone that feels unfamiliar or perceives unfamiliarity with anything that we're talking about, or reaching out and accessing or experiencing this unknowable or imperceivable essence, is I would remind them that actually they are quite familiar with it, because their breath is that.
Mm.
Breath is our first God, not our parents, not our family, not our community. Breath is the first thing that we bow down to, because without it, we don't have life. And
Right.
even if we don't know that on a conscious level, we're worshiping breath.
Yeah.
We're worshiping life. Every breath we take, whether it's in anger or in joy, it doesn't matter. We're devoted to it. We're already in relationship with that essence. And
Yeah.
so that comes from a very primal, basic level. But then what do we do when we want to experience it in our waking life, in our conscious life, in our more aware state? We take that breath and we create something. That
Yeah.
breath gives us life and we want to create something. So anytime we've created something, we're still in relationship with that essence. We
Right.
may not be fully aware of it, but it's that primal breath that has fueled action for us to be able to create something. And I think where the evolution really comes for us as humans is when we're able to reflect on that creation, have opinions, have judgments about it, have feedback about it. Um, and collectively as a society, I think this is where we've stopped. I think that we have opinions about everything, and we like to live within binary thinking and exist
Yeah.
within binaries, that it's so difficult for us to get back to that kind of primordial space of worshiping the breath and
Mhm.
worshiping the essence from which the breath came. But that's where we're going. We're not going back. We have to
Yeah.
move forward. So, what comes after our creation? What comes after the judgments? What comes after the opinions? The ability to hold nuance, the ability to hold layers. And that ability, or that capacity to hold layers within ourselves, is what allows us to hold layers within other people. And that's why, namaste is, I see the God within you. The God within me sees the God within you. Is because just that step of moving past the opinions and the judgments of who I am and what I've created and how I look and how I show up and my emotions and my fears. That's a really big graduating step.
Yeah.
You were just talking about the inner critic. That's part of that. The inner critic is on that step. And I think that's why a lot of us struggle to move beyond the punishment in a way of the inner critic, because it's such a huge step. Like, who are we without the inner critic? What are we as a society without that inner critic? We're able to love, we're able to hold space, we're able to be more empathetic, more compassionate. And now it's an elevated version of that first primordial breath.
Yeah. I'm just really taking in everything you shared, and what it sounds like for me as you're sharing that is it just creates a lot of spaciousness and presence. And it's actually through those different textures that we each offer that
Yeah.
we can get to know, this is where I am and this is where you are, and that's okay. And,
Mm-hmm.
it makes me think of relationship. And
Yes.
how, because I always come back to my partnership with Sean, because it's been such a powerful teacher for me. And like, if you're in relationship with someone you love, a lover, let's say in this case, and there's something that is sticky within you that needs airing, it needs to come out. You no longer choose to calcify it inside yourself, because the weight of carrying it is far heavier than the weight of letting it out.
Yeah.
And so being able to bring to light that which is suppressed is
Mm-hmm.
this opportunity for expansion and opening, because now we both have the power to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
We both have the power to choose to get to know a little deeper why we each are the way we are. And it is through that choice that that relationship can deepen. And so I
Mm-hmm.
just think about that. How many of us, and I know I've done this in the past, have suppressed our voice in the name of belonging, back to the beginning of our conversation with home, because as humans, we're so hardwired to want to belong and connect,
Mm-hmm.
especially like from a very 0 to 3 years old, those primary years of being with our caregivers. And so
Yeah.
I've noticed there's also like a lot of people out there that tend to override this power of their voice, this opportunity of like deepening in connection. And, it's like my highest hope that they're able to know the power of that. I was driving in my car with my son the other day, and he was trying to tell me, this girl came over and like spilled my drink for no reason, mama, and I want you to tell her not to do that anymore. And I said, "Oh, what were you feeling when it happened?" And he's like, "I was feeling sad and frustrated." He's 4. And he kept saying, "Please just tell her not to do that again." And then I heard myself say, "But honey, it'll be more powerful if it comes from your voice." But I felt
Mm-hmm.
like I needed to hear that in the moment. How
Yes.
often in life I'm afraid to speak my truth, and I'm in the practice and dance with that now more than ever, and I feel like I'm learning the steps and it's feeling really good. And there's like definitely this notion of discomfort, and yet it feels like a expansive discomfort, like birth.
Yeah.
Like there's something on the other side of that, what you were saying. What is on the other side
Yes.
of stories? What is on the other side of judgment and all of that? And this leads me to one of the things you've posted. And it was a beautiful share that said something along the lines of, you're telling me to love myself, but teach me how to know myself.
Yes.
And I feel like that's such a huge discernment, especially in the field of like wellness. And um, for me, this is a big thing of not bypassing even our like dark feelings or our dark thoughts, because that doesn't mean they're low vibes. In fact,
Yes.
they might be in which we need to deepen into to express what's being suppressed. So please, could you
Yes.
share more about what that meant
Yes.
for you?
Oh, I love that. I mean, even just going back to religion and just how you were saying, you were raised Catholic, and the community that I tend to attract often come with that same story. I was raised in this religion, and these were the wounds that I suffered from those
Mm,
things. And I'm seeing signs and synchronicities to um, Buddha or Jesus or Kali or
mm.
whatever. Does that mean I should go back? Like, what does that mean? And we can only move forward if we go back. And I know that sounds so like what? Mind melting. We can only
Yes.
move forward if we go back. I heard someone say that our energy is where we last left it. And so, in order for us to heal the wounds that were created from that place, we have to go back and retrieve the medicine because it's in that same place too. And I know that we know this, but sometimes the doing of it, like what you just illustrated with your son, the action of it, the devotion of it, the discipline of it can be a lot harder because it's just a bunch of unknowns. We don't know who we're going to be on the other side of it. We don't know if we're going to be stronger or weaker, or what side of ourselves are going to emerge that were not we didn't plan for. Maybe I'm ugly, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that, maybe I'm not as kind or not as nice, or maybe I do let people take advantage of me, or whatever the case may be. And I totally agree with you. I do not subscribe to the well that tells us, we should just have faith. We should just trust. We should
Yeah.
just surrender. We should just flow. That's not how life works all the time. And that's not how God works all the time. If someone is saying that they do not have faith, You telling them to have faith is not going to do anything for them.
Right.
If anything, it's going to make you seem less empathetic,
Mm-hmm.
less compassionate, that you're not in the present moment with them. And so for me, whenever I've felt like that, I just run into the fire. If I don't feel faithful, then I will be full on faithless. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, okay, let me just, get myself back into the vortex or get myself back into the high vibe or where
Yes.
I am. My friend always says, where you are is the essay.
Ooh.
So you have to write from that place. Okay, I'm faithless.
I was going to write that down. I love that.
Yes. If I'm faithless, then what am I writing about right now?
Mm-hmm.
About how abandoned I feel, about how alone, how isolated, how depressed, how much I want love, how much I want connection, how much I want communion, how much I do want to reach out and touch that person, but I feel unworthy, or I feel disgraced, or I feel ashamed. That's the essay. That's the healing. Having faith is not going to get you the peace that being faithless will get you. And I feel like I'm a heretic, and that's okay. For me, I'm fine to be that. But I think that love and peace and all the things that we chase after are oftentimes found in the unconventional places, the places that we dare not look, the places that we dare not think God is. I always say God is in the gutter. As much
Yeah.
as everyone says, oh, God's in the sky and God's in the wind and God, all those places, and God's also in the gutter.
You know what I say? God is in your holy shit. God is in all the shit of your life that you think you want to like ignore and hide
Yes.
and drink it away and
Yes.
shop it away,
Yes.
whatever the thing is. And
Mm.
that's so big. And as you're speaking, it reminds me of something that feels so alive for me is if someone's coming to you and they say, I have no faith, or, they're feeling whatever they're feeling, if it's in them, it matters because that is life moving through
Exactly.
them. And I can't tell
Exactly.
you how many people I know that and I used to do that, but I've really shifted the way I see that because to ignore that is to ignore life. And to ignore life is to ignore this flow through which it actually wants you to experience love and it wants you to get to the love and light. But sometimes, that love and light comes with looking at that which feels like all the other things it isn't, and
Mm-hmm.
it's scary. I
It
get it.
is.
It's everything you said. Who are we on the other side of that? Being able to admit that what you were saying, like, I want to touch that person. I want to know love. I want to belong. I want to be seen. And
Mm.
oh, those are so real for everyone at some point in their life.
Everyone. Everyone. And that's what makes us divinely human.
Yes, I love that. I want to talk about another thing that you shared, which
Yeah.
said something about, I'm going to try to remember this properly, but if it's not freeing you, if it's not helping you get free yourself from it. I
Mm-hmm.
am the source. Let's like chew this out because there are a lot of people that will invest in containers that have this guarantee that life will look different after they invest,
Mm.
a bajillion X amount. And I'm not saying some of these containers aren't in service to that, but there are a lot that are not. And I feel like it's very dangerous. And I want to speak to this. How might you apply this if it's not helping you get free yourself from it? Not just in that which we invest, but friendships, relationships, work things. One thing I love that we explored around this is we can create that which we want to manifest. And I know you honored something along the exploration of an emptying out practice,
Mm.
right? And just like how often we will yearn and desire from a place of overflow, and yet we're not really looking at the things that aren't serving us or like the things that are energetically draining us, whether it's a person, place, or thing.
Mm.
And being willing to admit again, like maybe it's time to free myself from this and then create this spaciousness. So I'd love to chew this out with you and how maybe you've come across this or how you've witnessed this in the world or what led you to that sort of share.
Mm. I just want to say thank you for these are like throwbacks.
Yeah. They're so relevant today,
Thank you for bringing those forward because sometimes, as creators and as writers, this, as writers, we write things and we sometimes feel like they get lost in the abyss of time. And like, when will they ever be relevant again outside of the time that we wrote them? So I just feel really cherished. Thank you for bringing
Oh
those
my
back.
God.
I
You are
appreciate
very
that.
cherished.
Hmm. So good. There's so many things I want to say, and I just have chills all over my body. When, let me start off with the verse. Very random. I don't know why I'm going here, but this is where we're going.
Mm.
That the truth will set you free. Everyone knows that,
Yes.
biblical or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the deeper question then we ask is, what is truth? What is this truth that will set me free? How do I know that I've found it? How can I measure it? How can I weigh it? How can I define it? And I think that's what we're addicted to. We're addicted to definitions and confinements of things. We love stability, and there's nothing wrong with stability. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. It's just that when we get attached to these things, our ability to discern their shelf life, so to speak, goes out the window. We don't know how much longer I should hold on to it, when I should let it go. Should I let it go? Does it want to just be refined or tweaked or transformed? Is it reflecting something within me, or is it reflecting something outside of me? We don't ask the questions because we're so deeply attached. And the Bhagavad Gita teaches so much about detachment and attachment. And it's this attachment that will be our eventual downfall. The clinging, the holding on to the old structures that are no longer working in our favor. We can see it clearly. There are no more resources. There's no more that you can take. And yet we're so attached to the feeling, to the experience of the reward of what it feels like to take. We don't want to change, but
Mm.
change is God. Every breath is a death, is something I would always say. Every breath is a death. And we oftentimes think that death is something that comes after life or something that's apart from life, but it's really a part of life.
Yeah.
Death is life. It is they're one in the same. And so how can we see stability and change as one in the same? Going back to what we were talking about, the binaries, and how as we are evolving as a society and as a collective, we're going to be challenged to move past binaries. We already see it in the collective, whether you're left or right, or stand somewhere in the middle with, how you see the society going. All of these things are coming up to challenge our previously held and created structures of what we think life should be, how we think a society should run, how we think a human should be. What are our morals, if we have them? Are they inherent? Are they learned? Like, these are all questions that we have to really wrestle with. And sometimes that wrestling takes us to a point where it's disillusion. It dissolves. That problem is no longer there, or the answer that we really wanted it to be doesn't exist. Through a series of just questions and answering, or through a series of digging, we get to a place that, if it's no longer serving the initial purpose of where we're trying to get to, the truth we're trying to define, then we have to set ourselves free from it. Because if we don't, we'll just be carrying dead weight, trying to make it work, trying to make it fit, trying to make this answer be the only answer, or this pathway be the only pathway. And we already know what that results in: war and famine and poverty and destruction and loneliness and anxiety and depression and abuse. It's like we have all of that evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we changing? Why are we so afraid to let go? And I think it speaks to a deeper fear around home. We've made that our home. And now you're telling me to leave my home in search and in hopes that I'll find a better home or a home that's more fitting to my evolution? And my answer is yes. Just because it exists. It has to exist just because we have asked for it. If we're asking for something, the answer already exists. The solution exists. We just haven't found it yet. So I think something that I'm practicing with every single day is just seeing beyond the binary. It's just been so helpful for me. It's
Yeah.
just in everything that I do, in every way that I see, I have to, if I can't see beyond the binary, then I am inhabiting a home that is probably kicking me out and I don't want to go. And I'm just like, no, I have to stay here. It's so amazing, or it's so warm, or I'm so used to these people. I'm so used to the way I'm perceived in this way. Wow. I'm just having like a full circle moment.
Mm.
My Chiron is in Cancer, and
Tell me more about that.
it's the wound of being homeless.
Interesting.
And this idea, because what I was going to say is that we will be eternally homeless. And as that came into my brain, I thought, is that the gift? To just accept that we will be eternally homeless? Like there will never be a place that can hold all of us on this earthly plane.
Yeah, that is an interesting. I'm just kind of chewing that on for myself.
Even for me, that was just that
Yeah,
was a in the
I'm like,
moment
that
thing.
felt
I
like
didn't.
that just came into our conversation.
Yeah, I had not thought of that, but you know what? I
Say that again,
have
we will eternally be
be
homeless.
homeless. We will eternally be homeless because the home that we're looking for, even the card that you read, you said something about star. It was a star seed card or something
Yeah.
to that effect.
Yeah, it was longing for home, homesick for the stars.
Homesick for the stars. Yeah.
Homesick for the stars, and it refers to a certain longing or homesickness.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So
So,
even going back to that feeling of we will be eternally homeless. Like this is not our home.
mm, at
This
least
place
in
is
this place, Earth.
this place that has suffering, this place
Mhm.
that has
Yes.
strife, this place that has misery, this place that has perceived death, our inability to see the truth. That's not our home. And yet that's where we've made our home.
We're so attached to
We're
that
so attached to it.
finite definition of home.
Yes, even the way we talk about religion, something I always say is that if your God can be defined and confined, you don't know God.
Mm, totally.
We want to make a home out of that.
Yeah. It's so weird. And that's
I know.
just it's a mind F because it's like, huh? But it's like, but I'm human and I've been hardwired to like find home. And so much
Yes.
language around well-being is like, I feel like, well, what just happened?
I know, me too. I'm so sorry to the listeners. I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I mean, this is what's alive in the conversation. This is what wants to declare its presence and
That's so true.
for us to explore. I mean, where we
Mm,
are is the essay. And this
yes.
essay, let's go deep into this. It's really uncomfortable, but I'm like, oh no.
It is. I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable because I brought it, and now I'm like, oh God, now everyone's staring. But you just said something kind of cool. That's like, but I'm human. Like I want a home, and all I just keep hearing is like, you have a home in yourself. This is not your home.
I
Like,
hear that so much. I do. I feel chills when you say that. When you were talking, my heart was racing and I feel calm again. It's like this
mm,
reminder. I had a somatic session once with this lovely person, Tammy, who was also on my podcast. And what I experienced there was noticing how the values I am drawn to in this present moment are the very things I would look for as a child in caregivers, in friendships, and things like that.
mm,
And this theme of home of what I felt was like, holy cow, I was never lost because that
yes.
wherever I am, there God is, their love is, their presence is. And need only attune to it and let it in for me to remember with home, like
Yes.
that home,
Yeah. Oh, chills.
right?
That one. That
Yeah,
one.
and it was like,
Yeah.
my goodness, like my inner child has been like this like guiding light. She's never
Mm.
apart from me. She's a part of
Yes.
me. And it's like, but that child is like it's a star child. Like we are cosmos. We are made up of the same constituents of that which we look up at night
Yes.
in the sky. And like, girl, I hear you on it now. I'm like, whoa, what is going on? I feel like God is in the room. Like something's happening.
Man, I pray that this makes it into somewhere where people need to hear it. You know, as you were
Mm,
talking, there's this song. It's called Monday, but I forget the artist. And he says, "I was never lost. I only chose not to go home."
mm, chills.
And that is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that we're not eager to let go of our suffering, like
Yeah,
Ramdas said. We're choosing to not go home. It's not that you don't have a home, it's that you're not seeking your home, that home, the one I have given you, the one that you came from. You're
yeah,
trying to make this earthly plane or this illusion or this samsara your home, and it will never be your home. You know, it's
yeah.
almost like, what don't you understand about that? Like, this is not your place.
Oh my gosh, fully landed. You have landed your plane. That makes so much
Thank
sense.
you. Sometimes it takes me a minute and I'm like clocking it in real time. Like, I did not come prepared to share that.
No, and I love that. Like, and I think to some degree we have all been on that path of exploration. A lot of us are. And it's
Yeah.
going to take time for us to be able to even let that in, you know. It's scary because so much
Mm.
of our human experience is built around attachments, attachment this, attachment that, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, all these like
Yeah.
theories and definitions. Like for example, my big fear of exploration with you, when I was like, I don't have a bunch of letters behind my name, who's going to want
Mm.
to buy my work or like read my writing, things like that. And it's like, and what exists on the other side of those letters? A lot of life experience, a lot of like tangible, embodied, and integrated life stuff that you can't always get from a textbook. And that is so valid, right? But it was my attachment to needing it be the way I was raised or shown it needed to be that
Yes.
prevented me from discovering this whole other part of home, an
Yes.
inherent piece that only I could let in when I choose to let it in. It's just
Yes.
wild. I'm
I
like,
know.
holy cow, a door just opened. A big, beautiful door just opened.
I'm literally right there with you.
I mean, yeah. And I'm just, like you said, I really hope it lands for the listeners that are connecting with, you know, any act of creation they're exploring, whether it's a relationship or a craft or something that's nudging on the trove of their heart. Like, I really hope they can
Yeah.
hear the music behind the words.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there is this huge kind of resurgence around authenticity and how do you be
Yeah.
your most authentic self and how that's connected to your purpose. And I think I think at the root or at the seed, what it's trying to say is, where are you coming from?
Mm, mm,
Like where are you creating from? Where are you coming from? Because authenticity is such a buzzword that sometimes it loses its power. And I think for me, as someone who was raised with such deep rooted culture, it was always, where's your family from?
right.
Like, where are you coming from? So that I know what values you're coming with. I
Yeah.
know who's standing behind you, what ancestors, where did they live? What did they practice? Like, where are you coming from? And if we can be honest with, I'm coming from here or I'm coming from there, where we are as the essay, then that authenticity or that light or that anything we want is ours.
And gosh, that is so freeing. like
Yeah.
being willing to admit that which brought us forth, to let all of us in. That's a big thing I'm exploring lately, like learning about the land on which I live, work, play, create, and like the land of my body, and really looking
Yes.
at being like, if I was, okay, so I have this theory. If I was a country. This body is a country, and I am the mayor of it. And every cell and fiber of my existence are just citizens. Every time I
Mm.
override my citizens, what happens is inflation. When you override a
Mm.
country, you don't listen to its needs, you don't give it rest, you don't give it breaks in that which keeps the country running. We hold our breath. Things start to break down in the breath hold, right? Like eventually we get lightheaded, our brain shuts down. XYZ. It's like if you are the mayor of this land, your body, this country, and you actually begin to listen to your cells and the organs, not as an individual part, but a part of a whole interconnected,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful system that is working so hard to allow us this human experience. What
Mm-hmm.
might it do in response to that? And I have
Mm-hmm.
overtaxed my system. It has been inflated. It has hung on to the cortisol. And I started to notice like the weight my body was hanging on to was my biggest ally, because now
Mm.
it was giving me information as to like where in my body I was calcifying stress and thoughts and like definitions and experiences, if it whether it was chronic pain in my shoulder or my lower back or anywhere. And then listening to that and noticing how it felt safe to let go, because then I was open to hearing, being in reciprocity to a different type of relationship, not a trend, but rather a truth that I was feeling through this portal of my body, this country, this reverence, not the
Mm-hmm.
fear of what would happen if I'm not skinny enough, pretty enough, doing enough, but
Mm-hmm.
rather the truth of like, this is where I am, this is the land on which I stand this moment, and I want to know what is here for me to
Yeah.
explore.
So beautiful. Love that.
It was a lot. Thank you for listening to
I
that.
love it. I love that. I think everything is so connected. All of our work and all of our contributions, all of our individual contributions, and just the things that we're interested in, the things that we're passionate about, the things that we want to bring forward and advocate for, they are interconnected. It's a whole web, it's a whole map. And we're all saying the same things, just in our own way. We all want to get to the same destination.
Yeah.
And my hope is that in these coming years that we'll learn how to make our contribution so that the burden and the pain of this collective rebirth will be lessened.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I want to note the time and be respectful of your time. We're at about an hour. And do you have about 5 more minutes
Yeah.
to share? So as we wrap this up, there's a quote that I really love, and I've written it down because I don't want to mess it up. But I think you've quoted it before, from the Gospel of Thomas. And it's,
Mm,
if you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you.
mm,
And as we wrap up this conversation, I would love to know if you have any nectar around this beautiful passage that we could sort of circle back to, even the theme of home, or
mm.
whatever feels really most alive for you right now that you want to impart with everyone.
That verse for me really just speaks right now in this season, and maybe in another season it will speak something else. But it really just speaks to how we withhold from ourselves. I don't subscribe to a God in the sky, or I joke, I call it a meddling God, a God that's always in your business and wants to control you, and, all those different kind of human characteristics that we
Mm,
have inflated around God. And I am God. You are God. We are God. We
mm,
are the ones choosing to withhold or not withhold.
mhm.
We are the ones that are saying, I want to do this, or I don't want to do that, or I want to hold on to my pain, or I don't want to hold on to my pain. And that verse historically is very much connected to this idea of salvation, and how when we bring forth our light, our contribution, when we know where we're coming from, we'll get our life back. The truth will set us free. And I think that's all of our purposes. Like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. We all need to understand, where am I coming from? Even in a conversation. It doesn't have to be this whole big, I'm going to go start a business, I'm going to be a coach, or I'm going to be a this, or I'm going to be a that. Just in the time that you and I are spending together. Mm-hmm. Where am I coming from? What's my heart posture? What do I want to say about this thing in this way? Even if the words are coming out of my mouth, what's the emanation that I want this other person to feel? Mm. And it takes courage. It takes vulnerability to say, yeah, this is coming to me right now. I actually haven't thought this through. I don't know what the ramifications of it will be. I'm really sorry if it confused you as the listener. That was not my intention. I hope that you can feel my pure intention, which was, that was a profound revelation for me in that moment. And I don't have to carry this idea that I will always be broken and I will always be homeless. That maybe this idea of I'll never be homeless has actually been saving me this whole time, that I don't have to be attached to anything, that I'm free,
You're already
that I can
free.
wander, that I can be curious, I can explore, I can experiment. I can't be punished. I won't get it wrong. I'm not sinful. Maybe it's a deeper thing it's a perspective that I couldn't see before. And so for me, it really touches upon this idea of vulnerability, of sharing with another person, of letting them see your heart, letting them see inside of you, letting them honor that or dishonor that. You really are putting your life on the line here. And if you do that, it will bring you salvation, not through that other person, but just from the pure act of laying yourself, bearing your soul, you will get your life.
Really beautiful, Jazz.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I feel, remember when we worked together, like, sanctify me.
Yes.
Just an inside joke, like, but really for reals. Like, I just feel like this conversation is such a gift. I love
Thank
being
you.
in dialogue with you
Me too.
anytime. Really appreciate you showing up in this community today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
And I would love for you to share where people can find you if they want to work with you, what's coming up for you.
Yeah. You can find me on our website, erahsociety.com. And we're the same on Instagram, Erah Society. And my personal Instagram is Jasmine Nnenna. And you can come and sit with us at the tea house and talk or not talk, or do whatever you want, and just kind of be in the presence of other people who are walking this. I like to call it an interfaith fellowship, because it's people from all different backgrounds and walks of life and walks of faith that are coming together and asking the same questions. Ironically, you would think that wouldn't happen, but here we are.
I love that. I love that there's spaces out there that exist. And
Yes.
I loved being in the tea house and just naming for everyone. Do you have a virtual, I'm sorry, like a physical tea house now?
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. The physical tea house is coming. And I know that's like the number one question we get. And it's coming. It's coming. I'm ready. I'm waiting for it.
All right, my love. Well, thank you so much. And I will stay connected in any way that I can.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.